قال المؤلف رحمه الله, said the author, may Allah have mercy upon him. وَالْعِلْمُ بِهَا مُتَحَقِّقٌ. The knowledge of those things is verified. The ilm, al-ilm, the knowledge, that means the conception that complies with reality. The conception or the perception that complies with reality. And we're talking about created knowledge. So that's something that occurs within ourselves. Something happens inside of ourselves, which is a realization. And that realization that happens in ourselves, it complies with reality outside of ourselves or beyond ourselves. Even if we say outside of ourselves, doesn't have to mean in a place. Not just our mental conception. وَالْعِلْمُ بِهَا مُتَحَقِّقٌ. The knowledge about them is verified. About what? What's them? Them is what the author says here. May Allah have mercy upon him. حَقَائِقُ الْأَشْيَاءِ. The realities of things. The knowledge about the realities of things is verified. That's different from the realities of things being verified. Those are two different things. And that's what he's telling us. Two different things here. قَالَ أَهْلُ الْحَقِّ. He says, the people of the truth declare, حَقَائِقُ الْأَشْيَاءِ ثَابِتَةً. The realities of things are confirmed. That has nothing to do with our knowledge. You know how they say, if a tree fell over in a forest where there was no one around, would it make a sound? So the answer is yes, it will make a sound. Yeah, as long as everything goes normal, there's nothing supernatural happening, it's going to make a sound. Someone posed that question to me as a child and tried to confuse me as if. They said, would it make a sound? I said, yeah, it makes a sound. They said, well, how do you know you're not there to hear it? I said, don't have to be there to hear it. Doesn't make sense. The realities of things are confirmed. That's one thing. And it's like he says, and I'll tell you another thing. وَالْعِلْمُ بِهَا مُتَحَقِّقٌ. And the knowledge about the realities of things is verified. الشرح أن العلم والمعرفة بالحقائق من تصور وتصديق متحقق. Period. The explanation is that the knowledge about the realities of things and being familiar with the realities of things. So I said knowledge and being familiar, just trying to find two words to translate these two words. Al-ilm, the knowledge, and the ma'rifah, the familiarity, the acquaintance. He means here the knowledge. About the realities of things is mutahaqqiq, is verified, means we do know that for sure. Min tasawwurin wa tasdiq, whether a mere conception or verification of a judgment. Whether that's mere conception or verification of a judgment. حصوله لنا ثابت يقينا. The occurrence of that for us, yani that happening to us, is confirmed certainly. ثم العلم إما تصور وإما تصديق. Furthermore, the knowledge is either conception, mere conception, or it's verification of a judgment. What does that mean? Shaykh's going to tell us here. فالتصور هو إدراك الماهية من غير أن يحكم عليها بنفي أو إثبات. Mere conception is the realization of something. Al-Mahiyyah means some type of thing or some reality or some essence of some sort. That's the meaning here. يعني something. So فالتصور هو إدراك الماهية من غير أن يحكم عليها بنفي أو إثبات. The mere conception, it is realization of the issue, the thing, without judging it, without any judgment of negation or confirmation for it. كقولك الإنسان حيوان ناطق. Like for you to say, the human is an uttering creature, a speaking creature. فإنك تفهم أولا معناه. So firstly, you would understand what this even means. So this is why I wanted to repeat this here. The human is an uttering creature. In the first place, before you say yay or nay, you need to understand what in the world was just said to you, or what you heard. It says here for you to say, let's say you heard it. Al-insanu hayawanun natiq. The human is a speaking creature. فَإِنَّكَ تَفْهَمُ أَوَّلًا مَعْنَاهُ. First of all, you understand what it even means. That's the mere conception. Before you say yay or nay. ثُمَّ تَحْكُمُ عَلَيْهِ إِمَّا بِالثُّبُوتِ وَإِمَّا بِالنَّفِي. Then, once you even conceived the meaning of this that was said, you will judge it, either with a confirmation or negation. That's the tasdeeq. That's the verification of a judgment. فَذَلِكَ الْفَهْمُ السَّابِقُ هُوَ التَّصَوُّرُ. So that initial comprehension, that's the mere conception. وَالتَّصْدِيقُ هُوَ أَن تَحْكُمَ عَلَيْهِ بِالنَّفْيِ أَوِ الْإِثْبَاتِ. And the tasdeeq, the verification of a judgment, is for you to judge it with a negation or a confirmation, to confirm it or deny it. So basically you're saying what? Someone tells you something. So when you hear it, before you say yay or nay, you might say, hold on, let me understand what you're saying. Then when you finally say, oh, I understand, that's your tasawwur. Now you got your tasawwur, now you're going to go to the next step. So then you might say, okay, I understand. No, that's false. Or you might say, I understand. Yes, that's true. So that second one, false or true, that's the tasdeeq. وَهَا هُنَا تَقْسِيمَاتٍ. And here there are categories. التقسيم الأول أن كل واحد من التصور والتصديق. The first category is that both, yani each one, the mere conception and the verification of a judgment. So now I'm thinking how to condense that. At-tasdeeq, verification of a judgment, how to condense that into one word. We could say verification. So if we say verification here, that doesn't mean confirmation. Verification here would mean the verification of a confirmation or the verification of a denial. قد يكون بديهية وقد يكون كسبية. Both of those could be intuitive or could be acquired, inferred. فالتصورات البديهية. So when it comes to some intuitive conceptions, مثل تصورنا لمعنى الحرارة والبرودة. It's like our conception of the meaning of hot or cold. So hot, you understand what that means. Talk about conception here, not feeling it. So hot or cold. When you hear that, khalas, you know what that means. You don't have to say hot. I don't remember. Bring me something. Let me touch it. So intrinsically, you conceive that, what it is. You understand it. I said intrinsically, intuitively. والتصورات الكسبية مثل تصورنا لمعنى الملك والجن. And inferred conception. And we talk about mere conception. Inferred conception. Not intuitive conception. Is like our conception of the meaning of angel and genie. So you say angel. Maybe you never saw one ever in your life. But you know what that means. You conceive that. How big is the angel? How many wings he has, etc. That's another thing. But the meaning of angel, you have a conception of it. Its meaning takes place for you. And same thing for genie or jinn. وَالتَّصْدِيقَاتُ الْبَدِيهِيَّةُ كَقَوْلِنَا. Now, the intuitive verifications. So verifying a judgment, yay or nay. Yani, confirm or deny. Affirmative or negative. This is intuitive though. So he's saying, we have, because when we say intuitive, that means like most basic function. So there's some positives and negatives that are intuitive for us. كقولنا النفي والإثبات لا يجتمعان ولا يرتفعان. Like for us to say, negation and confirmation cannot be simultaneously true about the same thing, nor can they both simultaneously be negated. It can't be both, and it can't be neither. فإذا قلت, and so if you were to say, الإنسان حيوان ناطق, the human is an uttering creature. فهذا إثبات, this is a confirmation. أما لو قلت, but if you were to say, الإنسان ليس بحيوان ناطق, the human is not an uttering creature. فهو نفي, this is a negation. So one of them is affirmative, the other is negative. فالقول بأن الإنسان حيوان ناطق والقول بأن الإنسان ليس بحيوان ناطق. So, saying that the human being is an uttering creature and saying that the human being is not an uttering creature, لا يجتمعان ولا يرتفعان أيضا. They could not both be confirmed, nor can they both be denied simultaneously. A لا بد من وجود أحدهما, meaning it has to be one or the other. الحيوان لغة ما فيه روح. Then he just slightly digresses for us to explain to us what hayawan means. All of what we said is clear though, assuming you know what hayawan means, which I said living or I just said creature. But here he tells us الحيوان لغة ما فيه روح. The hayawan linguistically is what has a soul. It basically amounts to meaning animated thing, an animated thing, not a picture drawn, not talking about a cartoon. Something it's animated by the soul in it. The soul brings it to life. كالملائكة والإنسان والبهائم والجن. Like the angels and the human and the animals and the genies. When I say the soul brings it to life, means by the power of Allah, of course. It's like that soul is battery. You have a dead body there. You put the soul in there, and then it will work. It can get up and move around and everything. وَأَمَّا التَّصْدِيقَاتُ الْكَسْبِيَّةِ. Now, as for the inferred verifications, فَكَقَوْلِنَا, that's like for us to say, الْإِلَهُ قَدِيم, God is eternal. وَالْعَالَمُ مُحْدَث, and the world is created. So both of those, God is eternal. We knew that by inference, by thinking. Except for some of the slaves of Allah, they know that without thinking. But other slaves of Allah, they know that by thinking, and then they come to the conclusion that God is eternal. وَالْعَالَمُ مُحْدَث. And the world is created. Same thing. You come to that truth by thinking and putting your facts together properly, and then this is your conclusion. So it's kasb, it's kasbi, it's earned, it's acquired, it's inferred. It's not necessary. It's not necessarily known. It's not granted. وَالتَّقْسِيمُ الثَّانِي تَصْدِيقٌ. The second category is verification of a judgment. فإما أن يكون مع الجزم أو لا مع الجزم. This verification of a judgment would either be with definitiveness, without equivocation, or it would be, yani, or it wouldn't be without equivocation, yani, there would be some lack of definitiveness about it. فالقسم الأول على أقسام. The first category has divisions. أحدها التصديق الجازم المطابق للدليل. The first of those divisions is a definitive verification of a judgment that is in compliance with the evidence. The verification of a judgment that's definitive and in compliance with the evidence. وثانيها التصديق الجازم لمحض التقليد. And the second is the verification of a judgment that's definitive but is based on or is due to pure imitation, merely mimicking. One merely mimics and he has definitive verification, yay or nay, as opposed to a person who has verification of a judgment, definitive, and it's aligned with the evidence. It's in alignment with the evidence about the issue, yani, the fact of the matter. So the second one, he doesn't have the evidence. He has verification, a definitive verification, a yay or a nay, affirmative or negative, but due to mere mimicking. كاعتقاد المقلد. That's like the conviction of someone who doesn't have a Muslim. That's like the conviction of a Muslim. That's what's meant here, this muqallid. That's like the conviction of a Muslim who doesn't have even the slightest evidence that his conviction is right. So he has no doubt that his religion is right. His belief is right. So that's affirmative. Correct religion? Affirmative. But he has what proof? Zero proof for himself, that is. وثالثها التصديق الجازم المستفاد من إحدى الحواس الخمس. And the third category is the verification of a judgment that's definitive and promoted by one of the five senses. كعلمنا بإحراق النار وإشراق الشمس. Like our knowledge of fire being combustible, or it's not the fire that's combustible, right? It's whatever that's burning is combustible. But fire being a burning material. We have knowledge of that. Our knowledge of fire being a burning material, we know that by senses, by observation. وَإِشْرَاقِ الشَّمْسِ. And also our knowledge of the sun's brilliance, our knowledge of the sun's brilliance. So what does it mean? It means, how do we know that fire is a burning material? Do we know that? Or that's an assumption? We know that. How do we know that? Because somebody told us? No, because by observation we know that. And that the sun is brilliant. How do we know that? By observation we know that. قال المؤلف رحمه الله, the author, may Allah have mercy upon him, said, خلافا للسوفسطائية, as opposed to the sophists. The sophists who said things aren't real. الشرح أن هذا متفق عليه بين الطوائف كلها إلا السوفسطائية. The explanation is that that things are really known, that things really exist, and knowing that they exist as they are, knowing them as they are, this is agreed upon by all groups and all religions, all factions, all sects, except the sophists. قال المؤلف رحمه الله, said the author, may Allah have mercy upon him. وأسباب العلم للخلق ثلاثة, and the reasons, the causes of knowledge for the creations are three. الحواس السليمة والخبر الصادق والعقل, sound senses, accurate news, and intellect or mind. الشرح, the explanation, أن الطرق التي يتوصل بها المخلوق إلى العلم اليقيني القطعي ثلاثة, is that the ways by which the creation achieves certain definitive knowledge are three. And saying yaqini, certain, and qat'i, definitive, those are merely intensifiers, not qualifiers. Those are not qualifiers, those are intensifiers. Meaning, they're not essential here for the meaning. The Shaykh was able to say here, like the author said in the first place, just ilm. The explanation is that the ways by which the creation achieves knowledge are three. But the Shaykh, he emphasized what's meant by knowledge here by saying al-yaqini al-qat'i, the certain definitive knowledge. So by that, he removes any figurative meaning here. Because ilm could be used with a figurative meaning. Knowledge could be used with a figurative meaning. What would that figurative meaning be? That figurative meaning would be being very confident, having the highest levels of confidence about an issue. So that a person, because he's so confident about something about which he could be wrong, but he's so confident that he's not wrong, he would say, I know it. So in that case, when he says, I know what you did, I know that you didn't, or that you did, or etc., and he doesn't really know in the true sense, but it's because he's confident, so confident, then that's a figure of speech. Really, that's an assumption or a supposition. So when the Shaykh here said al-yaqini al-qat'i, then he removed that And he disqualified that from being intended here. What's not literally knowledge, but it's called that sometimes. He told us that there's 3 channels, at-turuq, the channels, the ways by which the creation yatawassalu, reaches, yani achieves knowledge, are 3. Al-hawasu salima. So there's a shadda on this scene, and there's a shadda on this scene. So you're going to say Al-hawasu salima, sound senses. Wal-khabaru sadiq, and accurate news. Wal-aql, and intellect. Amma al-haqq subhanahu wa ta'ala, but concerning the real God, exalted is he and glorified, فَلَا يَحْتَاجُ فِي الْعِلْمِ إِلَى سَبَبٍ, he doesn't need a reason to have knowledge. We need a reason to have knowledge. Allah made us come out of our mothers with no knowledge. And he gave us the means by which we would get knowledge. He gave us senses and a heart. لِأَنَّ عِلْمَهُ أَزَلِي, this is because God's knowledge is eternal. فَلَا يَحْتَاجُ إِلَى سَبَبٍ, so it doesn't need a reason. قال المؤلف رحمه الله, said the author, may Allah have mercy upon him. فَالْحَوَاسُ خَمْسٌ, and so the senses are 5. السَّمْعُ وَالْبَصَرُ وَالشَّمُّ وَالذَّوْقُ وَاللَّمْسُ, hearing, sight, smell, taste, and feel. الشرح أن الحواس جمع حاسة. The explanation is that the word that the author used in his Arabic text, al-hawas, senses, it is the plural of hassa, sense. And the sense, our senses, we creatures, we have senses. The sense of the creature is a power. So Allah gave us powers. فَمَا يُدْرَكُ بِهَذِهِ الْحَوَاسِ الْخَمْسِ يَقِينِيٌّ قَطْعِيٌّ. So anything realized by these 5 senses is certain and definitive. Meaning, when these senses are sound, then what's realized by them is certain and definitive. So if you saw something with sound senses, then khalas, you're going to say that's real. Or the likes of that. قال المؤلف رحمه الله, said the author, may Allah have mercy upon him. وبكل حاسة منها يوقف على ما وضعت هي له. And each one of those senses detects what it was put for. الشرح, the explanation. أنه يكون الإدراك بكل واحدة منها لما خلقت هي له, is that realization by any one of these senses would be, yani what's realized is whatever the sense was created for. ومعنى ذلك أن الله خلق كل من تلك الحواس لإدراك أشياء مخصوصة. And the meaning of that is that Allah created each one of those senses for detecting particular things. كالسمع للأصوات, like hearing for sounds. والذوق للطعوم, and taste for flavors. والشم للروائح, and smelling for fragrances or odors. وجرت العادة أن ما يدرك بإحدى هذه الحواس لا يدرك بالأخرى. and the norm, the nature of this world, that which is not supernatural, rather it's within the natural laws of the world, is that whatever is realized by one of these five senses is not realized by another. لكن لا يمتنع ذلك عقلا, but that is not impossible intellectually. So a scientist would agree with us maybe all the way up till here. Then when we say, but could be that one sense would detect what it's not created for, maybe he wouldn't accept that because he's missing Aqidah, that Allah is the creator.
Can you explain that again? Go back a little bit, about a sentence or two, because I can hear it real good.
Yeah. Maybe you're asking me about when I said, maybe all of what we're saying so far about realizing things by our senses, a scientist would agree with us. And they do agree, like scientists don't agree with sophists. They say the way of the sophists is unscientific, to just believe things aren't real. They say matter is real and our senses are detecting things. Like if it was red and I can see and you can see, we'd both see red. Scientists say that. But where they might disagree with us is when we got down to here, which is that we said the norm, the natural norm, or the natural law of the world is that what is detected by one sense is not detected by another sense. But that's not impossible intellectually. We say that what's detected by one sense could be normally, Ani. What's normally detected by one sense could be possibly detected by another sense, possibly intellectually. It's possible intellectually. Maybe a scientist would say, that's not possible. How's that possible? You can't see by your nose, or you can't hear by your tongue, for example. You can't taste by your ears. That's impossible. Maybe a scientist would not agree. He wouldn't be able to go that far. Why he can't go that far? Because he doesn't have Aqidah, doesn't have monotheism. وذلك لأن هذه الحواس أسباب لإدراك هذه الأشياء. لإدراك هذه الأشياء بها. And that's because, the reason we don't say that's impossible intellectually is because these senses are merely reasons for realizing these things. من غير أن يكون لها تأثير حقيقي. Without these senses having any real effect. They don't have any real effect. Your eyes don't create anything, etc. Your fingers don't create anything. The nerves you have in your skin, in your body, don't create anything. ومن الجائز عقلا أن تدرك خواص حاسة منها بحاسة أخرى. And amongst what is possible intellectually is realizing what is special to one sense by another sense. لأنه ليس شيء منها خالقا لذلك ومكونا. Because none of those senses are a creator of that. بل تحصل تلك المدركات بها بخلق الله تعالى. Rather, the realizations that occur by these senses is by the creating of God Almighty. قال المؤلف رحمه الله, said the author, may Allah have mercy upon him. والخبر الصادق على نوعين. And accurate news is of two types. أحدهما الخبر المتواتر. One of those two is the successive mass narration. وهو الخبر الثابت على ألسنة قوم لا يتصور تواطؤهم على الكذب. It is defined as, according to our author here, the confirmed news, the news confirmed upon the tongues of a folk whom their conspiring to a lie is inconceivable. Inconceivable here means normally. Their conspiring to a lie is a normal impossibility. الشرح أن الخبر المتواتر لا يحتمل الكذب. The explanation is that successive mass narration could not possibly be false. بل يتحتم موافقته للواقع. Rather, its compliance with reality is guaranteed. وأما تفسيره, and as for its definition, فهو الخبر الذي يخبر به أناس كثيرون. It is news that many people tell. بحيث لا يتصور أن يتواطؤوا على الكذب فيما بينهم. Such that it is not conceived that they would conspire to a lie amongst themselves about this particular news. Not any lie. When I say a lie, I'm saying a lie here. It means that news that they're telling. They didn't conspire to lie about that news that they are telling. فإنما كان بهذه الصفة في الطبقة الأولى والوسطى والأخيرة. For indeed, anything that has this description at the inception level and the middle level and the last level of transmission, it dictates certain knowledge, definitive knowledge, which if we want we can just say it dictates knowledge. Yani for me, at first, this yaqini and qat'i, when I was first studying this information, it threw me off. Because I knew necessary knowledge and I knew inferred knowledge. What's the necessary knowledge? It's what's granted, automatic. You don't need a proof for it. And what's inferred knowledge? It's what needs a proof. So then when the word yaqini came in there, or qat'i, it threw me off a little bit. Until I finally realized what was happening there. Those words really are extra. Yaqini and qat'i. وأما ما كان في الطبقة الأولى أقل من هذا القدر. As for though, if something were in the first level, the inception level of the narration, if it were fewer than this amount that we have described, ثم حصلت تلك الكثرة, but then that abundance occurred later, not in the first level, فإنه ليس موجبا للعلم, then indeed that is not indicative of knowledge. Yani it does not promote knowledge. كخبر النصارى بقتل عيسى عليه السلام وصلبه. Like the Christians' news about Jesus being killed and crucified, may peace be upon him. The Shaykh is going to talk about this now in more detail. We're not going to get into it. We're not going to get to it today, inshallah. He's going to come back to this. He's going to tell us, because we do know someone was killed upon a pole. That's for sure. So how wasn't Jesus? How is it not verified? Because, like some scholars said, this was number one. Whoever was on that pole was not itself seen by tawatur, like so many people that is tawatur. And number two, whoever was on that pole, he was seen from afar. Anyone who was able to actually see him on that pole up close is definitely less than tawatur. واليهود بأن موسى قال شرعي هذا لا ينسخ أبدا ولا شريعة بعد شريعتي. And like the Jews telling that Moses said, this sacred law of mine shall never be abrogated, and there is no sacred law after my sacred law. فإنه لم يحصل التواتر بذلك في الطبقة الأولى. Indeed, there was no successive mass report about that in the inception stage. ولا ينظر إلى كثرة الطبقة التي بعدها. And there's no regard given to the abundance that occurs in the next level or some subsequent level after the first one. فلا يسمى كل من الخبرين متواترا مفيدا للعلم. So neither of those two reports is called a successive mass report that promotes knowledge. And there's many things like that. Be mindful. There are things that the people repeat, and they repeat it so much that it becomes like it's common knowledge. But really, they have no idea. They didn't research it. It's just that everyone says it. Everyone says it. So when there's something that all the people are always saying so much, then becomes like a given for people. So they think it's true. So lots of the things that the people repeat, don't be one of those people who just repeat. I'm not talking about religion here. I'm not talking about if you have access to authentic religion. I'm talking about other than that. Be mindful before you repeat what the people repeat. I just had an example in my mind. It slipped me. والخبر المتواتر لا يشترط فيه عدالة الرواه. لا يشترط فيه عدالة الرواة عند الأصوليين. And the successive mass reports is not dependent upon the reliability or trustworthiness of its narrators, according to the scholars of the fundamentals. بل قال الشيرازي, rather, الشيرازي said, يقع العلم بتواتر الكفار. Knowledge will occur even by successive mass report of disbelievers. ومنهم من اشترط الإسلام والعدالة. And some scholars have deemed Islam and trustworthiness a condition for successive mass report. كالفخر البزدوي الحنفي. Like Al-Fakhr al-Bazdawi, the Hanafi. وأنكرت السمنية والبراهمة العلم بالخبر المتواتر. And the Sumaniyah and the Brahmins have denied knowledge that occurs by successive mass report. Both of these are Indian groups. Indian means from India. Says here, As-Sumaniyah is a group of idol worshippers. They believe in reincarnation, and they deny knowledge by way of news. And the Barahima, the Brahmins, they are people who deny prophethood from India, from the land of India, saying that, and they say that news is no sort of evidence, fundamentally. And there is no knowledge acquired by news in any way. No sort of knowledge. They said there's no sort of knowledge. How you want to categorize knowledge, all those categories, whatever ones you want to come up with, you can't get any of that by news. And that the most you can get out of news, according to them, is thinking that something is correct. And you can't know it. So we don't agree with that. We say there is a way to know something is correct by news. So the Sumaniyah and the Barahima, they denied knowledge by way of successive mass report. وَاحْتَجُّوا بِأَنَّ الْمُتَوَاتِرَ اجْتَمَعَ مِنَ الْآحَادِ. And their argument is that a successive mass report is nothing but an accumulation of reports of individuals. التي لا توجب العلم. And reports of individuals, they don't dictate knowledge. وما لا يوجب العلم. And anything that doesn't dictate knowledge, إذا انضم لما لا يوجب العلم. If it is added to something else that does not dictate knowledge, لا يوجب العلم. Then the sum will not dictate knowledge. They say, ألا ترى أنه لما اتصف كل واحد من الزنج بالسواد وجب في الكل أن يكونوا متصفين بالسواد. They say, don't you see that when it was that every Negro is black, then it's necessary that when they are all together, they would still be black. هذا كلامهم. This is what they said. And he's saying it's not going to make them more black. It's just going to be black like they were on an individual basis. وجوابنا أنه جاز أن يحدث عند الاجتماع من القوة ما لم يكن عند عدم الاجتماع. And our answer is that it is possible that there would occur by accumulation and collection. Strength would occur by accumulation and collection that would not occur without such accumulation. كقوى الحبل, like the strength of a rope. فإنه يحصل له عند الاجتماع من القوة ما لم يكن له عند عدمه. For indeed, there does occur for a rope strength by the collection of its strands. When you add one strand to another strand to another strand to another strand, by the collection of its strands, it acquires strength that it did not have without those strands, or with less strands. So what this amounts to say is that their example, their comparison, they're comparing news to people, is in this way, what they did is an invalid comparison, false equivalence. And a better comparison is to compare news to strands, such that one strand on its own could be weak, and even two could be weak, but once you gather them, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 20, 50, it gets stronger and stronger. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Allah knows best. We'll stop there.